All right, welcome everyone to another episode of Behind the Human. I'm your host, Mark Champagne, and it's my job to unpack the stories and mental fitness practices of people living at the top of their game, personally and professionally. And do we ever have an amazing treat for all of you today? We've got Dr. Darnyelle, who is a girl, award-winning business growth strategist, multi-millionaire business mentor, and Inc. 5000 CEO. Her journey began in chaotic circumstances, born to drug-addicted parents and facing challenges that would have discouraged many. However, she defied the odds, breaking belief barriers and emerging as a disruptor in the business world. And she is just full of awesome energy is what I would describe you as. So welcome to the show. Who are you?
Yeah, I am a very intentional human. And I have made a decision to be abundance in every way, in all ways. And I live my life with that intention. I am extremely committed to building relationships and connecting with people for no other reason than the connection.
Oh, I like that distinction.
Because I feel like, as business people, and hey, I'm on your show, right? I could be on here just trying to promote myself, but I'm not. I'm on here to have an amazing conversation with you, to connect with you, to connect with your listeners, and to see how the ball bounces. Because when you have decided to be as intentional as I am, you detach from all outcomes and you just show up fully. And so at my core, that's who I am. I mean, if you happen to look at this, you'll see that I'm a Black girl. If you happen to hear me talk for any amount of time, you'll hear that I'm a God girl. I love God. And I believe that businesses that have a spiritual foundation go farther faster. I am sometimes funny, sometimes quirky. I love a good book. I love to sleep. And I love to dance.
Yes. Sign me up for your protocol. I like it. Well, we're going to dive right in then, because I mean, just even off of this answer, the thing that comes to mind right away is, or the question I have you always had these characteristics or values instilled in you, or is this something that you had to grow into? Because I feel like truly letting go of expectations and stuff like that, that's really takes a lot of work. At least I think, because our society is the opposite.
I would agree. I would tell you that when I turned 40, and I'm 48, I literally felt like I entered the promised land. Like my first 40 years of living, I was wandering, I was taking that couple of days journey that took me 40 years to get there. And all of a sudden, the demystification happened. All of a sudden, I was confident enough. I was brilliant enough. I was everything enough. And it ceased to matter what other people thought of me. So it was absolutely perpetual overtime. Lots of bumps and bruises, lots of being knocked down and dusting myself and getting back up. That really led to the culmination of the woman I get to be today. I wish I could say I woke up like this, but that would be a lie. And that would also not serve anyone to believe that any of us have arrived, right? And I'm still not, I still haven't whatever the word is. I haven't arrived yet. Yeah. I'm still on this journey and this destination every day, making conscious decisions to do a little bit more to live into the abundance that I've decided that I am, and to create an environment and a safe space to allow other people to do the same.
I have to ask you about being in the 40s, because so I just turned 40 last month.
Oh, congratulations and happy birthday.
Thank you. And my wife as well, 15 days later. And we kind of both, without even really talking about it, had this feeling of for at least for us, the 30s were just like a hell of a ride. Basically, completely different people, different careers, like so much change and whatnot, and a lot of ups and downs because of that. But super grateful. But to your point, it's like something happens at least at 40 that I have a hard time explaining. So I'm going to ask you to see if you can. But it was like I'm ready for this next decade. Like, buckle up, let's go. If, to your point, feels like put in a lot of work and gone through a lot of different things that, like, at least for me, feel like, let's go, abundance all the way around. And like, there's this other level of confidence, though, with that.
What
happens?
It's inexplicable. And the only thing I can relate it to is the story in the Bible of the children of Israel, right? So if you know the story, the children of Israel were slaves and they were granted release a little reluctantly by Pharaoh, and they were guided by Moses to get to the promised land, the land flowing with milk and honey that God had promised for them since before they were enslaved. And what should have taken them 3 days actually took them 40 years to actually get there. And so for me, like, as I think about my life experience, I was born to drug addicted parents in 1975. My mom went to jail when I was 8. My dad was an addict the whole time I was growing up. He stole money from me. Like, all the things. I went to college, luckily enough to go on a full scholarship, got a great job right out of college after I decided not to go to law school. Worked that job for 12 years, ended up becoming a vice president, making $100,000 a year. Like, all the things, and still getting to what many would have described to be the pinnacle of life. Like, you have arrived and feeling like something was missing. There had to be more to life than that. That sitting behind someone else's desk was not what I was supposed to do with my life experience. And recognizing that I got to make a decision about what I would do next. And I feel like if you've lived 40 years, not only do you have the bumps and the bruises, but you also have the trophies. Yeah. And you deserve to take a little lenience and decide to do things your way. And I just feel like at that moment, crossing over that threshold, it's like, you know what? I made it this far. There's so many people who don't make it here. Yeah. And because I'm here with my experience, with everything I've been through, every piece of trauma, every piece of triumph, I'm going to live my life fully. Because there's also this recognition, if you look at the average lifespan, the average person lives to be 78 to 82 years old. So at 40, you're like halfway through your life. Like, you might have regrets, but you don't want to keep living in the regrets. And so you're willing to get a little bit more courage and do the thing that is going to make a difference.
Yeah. It's interesting because, like, I mean, I'm sure you've kind of lived seeing this or hearing this as well. Like, you think of turning 40 and it's like the classic, like your midlife crisis. But so far, maybe it's just the circle that I hang around with because we're all like business owners or entrepreneurs of some sort. It's been the reverse. It's been like, wow, like we got to this point, let's go. So I wonder, it's probably something to do with, I imagine, people that, have been doing things in their lives that just aren't in true alignment and whatever. And you hit this period of, well, wait a second. Like, it's probably the same thing that you're saying. It's just, for those that go through a midlife crisis, it's more of, it's time to change. Like, you have those same feelings, but they may be stuck in a job or a situation or whatever it is, right? That needs to change. Okay. Fascinating. So I'd be remiss, though, to not ask for your advice or perspective when, speaking. There's a lot of people on the show that are younger than 40 and, might be going through their journey and going through the highs and lows and so forth. Just kind of what you just shared. Like, what would be your advice to those that might be in a slump or something like that?
Hang on, it gets better.
Yeah.
Keep getting up one day at a time, putting one foot in front of the other, making decisions that shift perspectives as much as you possibly can, because it gets to be easy and it will get easier.
Yeah. What do you use for your mind to shift perspective? And like, what are some of your foundational rituals or routines that you use either daily or weekly basis?
Yes, I probably have 3 distinct ones that are popping in right now. Number 1, visualization.
Okay.
The power of seeing a different reality. So I talk a lot in my work about operating from your vision point and not your vantage point, because your vantage point is always skewed, right? So always thinking ahead where it is that you desire to be instead of wherever you might be in that particular moment. So visualization, journaling would be the second.
Yeah.
just taking time and asking myself a reflective question and sitting with the answer and sitting with myself long enough to get the answer.
Ooh.
And then the third would be moving my body.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like by getting up and, shaking things off, getting out into the grass and allowing myself to ground, whatever might be happening internally, I get to shake it up so that I can shift. And so those would be my three.
I love it. So for the journaling, giving yourself the space and time for the answer to surface, like what does your practice look like? Is that pen to paper? Is that blocking a certain amount of time? Or like, just practically speaking, what does it look like for you?
Yeah. So I try to, when I first get up in the morning, first practice, of course, is gratitude. So immediately, thank you for opening my eyes, right? Thank you that I can move and wiggle parts of my body. And then I get up, I get on the treadmill for 20 to 30 minutes, which for me is just an exercise of getting my heart rate up, right? Like just keeping my heart healthy. Soon as I come down off the treadmill, and it's interesting because when I'm on the treadmill, I hear so much that I then go to my journal. And so it's typically 15 or 20 minutes. And I just pose a question. And it's typically the question that came to me while I was on the treadmill. So purposely while I'm on the treadmill, I'm listening to instrumental music. So nothing is being insinuated, right? It's just music. And I can hear what my spirit is saying to me about that day, about my intentions for the day. And then I literally just pose the question that pops in as soon as I sit down. And sometimes I immediately write. Sometimes I take a deep breath. I sit back. I think about it for a second. And then I just let the pen speak. And then once I finish letting the pen speak, that might be 5 to 10 minutes. Then I read and reflect. And then I ask myself, would abundance add anything else?
Ooh, that is juicy. I like that. That's showing up in the journal tomorrow morning over here. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. And then I sit with that and I see what else abundance would add. And then at the end, I just sit and I reflect and I state one of my mantras, like the one, I just heard this yesterday. So today was literally the first time I said this was, I trust, I allow, I receive, thank you, more, please.
Ooh, I'm writing that down. I like that. Isn't it amazing? I find, because I want to get into some of your work as well, which obviously I think will dovetail into this or dovetail into it quite naturally, because I know, you're a big proponent of making sure the mind is set up, to go into business and so forth. But I always find it like fascinating that over almost 400 interviews now with lovely humans like yourself, the consistent kind of practice, the generalization is we all take time to just still the mind and let it breathe and think, which is not what's portrayed in the media in the outside world. It's like grind, hustle, this, that. Like if you're going to start a company, it's like you've got to do this, and this. But it's all the thing that's always kind of brushed over is there's actually downtime for the mind there all the time. Right? Like it comes up all the time. And whether I've interviewed someone or the people that I've studied for the book and so forth, right across from the beginning of time, like there's time to let the mind sit. And to your point, like those questions to come up, the ideas to come up, it's just so valuable.
Yeah. Genius needs space.
Yeah. So how do you, and maybe this isn't a big struggle for you now, but maybe at one point it was, but how do you combat or deal with the difference, those two worlds? Like, this, you have some pretty solid practices, but everything in the outside world is, links to comparison and pushing and this and that. Have you had to come to terms with that in any capacity or let it go?
Yeah, definitely. Sometimes letting it go, sometimes letting it be, right? And I think the biggest thing for me is that at this juncture, I am number one.
Yeah.
Nothing else comes before me. And because of that, I'm willing to give myself the time and space to do what I need to do. I run a company. I'm not a solopreneur who has a lifestyle business. I have full-time employees who come to work every single day on behalf of the vision that God gave me to serve this planet. And I, as the CEO of this company, have made a decision that my workday does not begin until 10 a.m.
Sure.
I'm not a person who wakes up at the butt crack of dawn to do all of the things before the rest of the world works up. No, I value sleep. I told you that when I told you who I am, right? Yeah. And that means I'm sleeping for 8 hours every single night, hook or crook. And if I wake up at 4 or 5 a.m. because I have a thought, I'm going back to bed until I get my 8 hours.
Exactly.
And when I do finally wake, the first thing that's happening is I'm going to take care of my vessel. I'm getting on the treadmill. Yeah. I'm spending that time for myself. I believe what the stewardess or flight attendants say when we get on airplanes, secure your mask before helping those on the journey with you. And so for me to secure my mask, that means, I wake up between 7:30 and 8. I do, my gratitude, all of that. I'm typically on the treadmill by 8:20. I'm on the treadmill for 20, 30 minutes. So we're talking 8:50, 9 o'clock. I then come back upstairs. I shower. I go get my dog. I take her for a walk. I come back in. I have breakfast. And then I drive to work.
Yeah. Yeah. Just setting those boundaries.
Yes. Self-care is a business growth strategy.
Ooh, well said.
So if we don't take, what is there to steward as a CEO if you're not taking care of yourself?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that has become definitive. That is what I do. That is a boundary. Everything else has to work. Now, are there exceptions? Sure. Sometimes I have to take a 6 a.m. flight and that usurps my rituals, right? And those are the exception, not the rule. Yeah. And as a team, there might be some days that I get in here at 9 a.m. when the rest of the team is getting here. And when I do that, know that I've chosen to get up earlier to do all of the things I need to do before I come to work. Because I am number one. And, I believe self-care is not selfish. And I believe that we do the world a disservice if we are not well, whatever that means for us. So mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, financially, if we are not well, we are not helping anybody solve any problem. And so by making that decision and living into it and being an example of it, I'm hoping that I'm creating an environment for other people to do the same.
Well, I'd say you are. I mean, I just love already, I can pick up on the theme or energy of the conversation, and there's a lot of it being grounded around just setting really clear intentions for yourself, which I feel in I was looking at a way, so I really want to get into your work, which this is your work, obviously, but that's kind of the theme that I've pulled out some quotes from the website and some of the testimonials and stuff like that, and there's just a lot of similarity when it comes to just be bold intentions, put it out there. There's one line here I'd love to get your feedback or talk about. It reads like this: if you don't come from millions, millions should come from you. Yeah. That packs a punch. Let's talk about that line.
Yeah, so here's the thing. I'm a business person. I love business. And if we look at the statistics around small business, which is the backbone of the economy in the United States, I know you're in Canada.
Yeah.
It's a little abysmal, right? And we have all of these people who are business owners who cannot afford to create a business that offers them a really viable wage to create financial legacy. I want every single one of you to pass down your recipes, but I also want you to pass down something they can fold so that you can shift your generational trajectory. And that's regardless of where you come from, right? Yeah. Even the Rockefellers, who had 700 or 800 generations worth of wealth, needed to continue working at financial legacy so that there would be something for the 13th generation Vanderbilts or Roosevelts or, whomever. So because of that, I feel like, when we get a job to live, but to also to prepare for retirement and to be able to leave something. But when we become entrepreneurs, we are taught our foundation of the culture in entrepreneurship is hustle, 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 make just enough to get by, and that'll be great. And I think that that's a lie, and we need to stop trying to sell it. And so for me, entrepreneurship, I believe, is the vehicle that was created for us to become wealthy. And not wealth for the sake of having more things, but wealth for the sake of changing generational trajectories, to be able to leave something behind. And so I didn't come from millions, right? My parents were dirt poor. I mean, I was born in the projects, right? I didn't come from millions. My mom does not have an estate that she will leave me. My dad already passed away. And as a result of that, I mean, I got a little bit of change. I got like $10,000, and I'm grateful because we were able to sell his home after we paid off all of his debts. But I'm not changing my life with $10,000.
Yeah.
I'm not establishing a rubric upon which my family can stake its reputation on $10,000. And so something's got to change. So if you did not come from millions, then millions should come from you. And if you came from millions, your responsibility is to create some more millions so that more millions can come from you. And I just think that it's how we pay it forward, and it's how we make the world a better place, right? It's hard to be the change if you don't have any.
Yeah. Well, and I think the other thing too, just like we have this weird relationship with money. And it's like seen, in certain, I'm stereotyping or making generalizations, I should say, but like, I think a lot of us have a hard time with, it's like you almost see money as evil in a way.
Yeah, most people do, because that's what they were taught.
Yeah.
And taught sometimes through actually someone saying money is evil, but also taught through what happens and what you observe around money. Because even if you come from a family that is well off or does well, but money is taboo, you can't talk about it, it's disrespectful, how dare you ask those questions, then you're going to form an opinion that there's something wrong with money, and it's going to taint your experience with it.
Yeah. So where do you start when people come into your programs and whatnot? Like what's the foundation that you work on before getting into different growth strategies or, how to put on a multi-million-dollar event and so forth?
Yeah. So the very first thing we do is we do a very detailed assessment. We look under the hood of their business. We look at all the nooks and crannies. We're looking for the gaps so that we can identify what's going to be the right way to get them to where they desire to be instead. And as a part of that, we are exploring their relationship with money. We're exploring their family dynamic. We're exploring what they believe to be true. We're exploring their fears, their limiting beliefs. We're exploring the conscious thoughts as well as the subconscious patterns that are flowering the decisions that they make and the actions that they take. We get into all of that. And then as we get an understanding of it, we start to do the work to reframe the beliefs that they hold that are going to impact the strategies that they use and ultimately the results that they get. So it's really deep and introspective. It is, I'm a category of one. There are not other people in the world that care this much about not just business, but the business owner to do this extensive level of work, all under the guise of business, right? So, some people are just the money mindset coach. Some people are just the marketing coach or the sales coach. We run the gamut. We look at the entire infrastructure internally and externally in order to support them to get to where it is that they really desire to be. And it can take time, right? It depends on how deep the wounds are, so to speak. And, I'm not a therapist. I don't play one on TV. I do have certifications and modalities and tools that I can use that allow me to deal with wealth energetics and neuroscience and peak performance and mindset and all of those things. And we partner with mental health professionals when that's the right solution for the client. But I believe that because money is a tool, it's an energy, it's not an identity, we have a responsibility to shift people from looking at money as their identity. And we have to do that work if we want to help them make millions of dollars. Because if they believe $1 million is a lot of money, they'll never earn it, no matter how good they are, no matter what widget they create, no matter what problem they solve. They'll never earn a lot of money. They will constantly self-sabotage because they believe that that's more than they deserve or are worth, unless we help them to reset their worth and understand that it has nothing to do with money and get them out of the identity of money and get them into leveraging money as an energetic source or tool.
Let's pull that thread a little bit more, because I feel like probably the vast majority of the people listening right now would resonate with everything you're saying there, just given, how money just plays such an important role, obviously, in all of our lives. Are there any questions that come to mind or practices that you use that could help someone listening now to, I guess, start reforming a healthier relationship with wealth and money?
Absolutely. So one of the things that we do, we literally just did it at our live event at the time of this recording. We recently held our annual event, Move to Millions Live. And so one of the things that I have come to learn through studying neuroscience and metaphysics and understanding our brains and how they work is that when we are born, we're literally only born with a subconscious mind, and our conscious mind is formed based on everything we observe and what we take in. Yeah. And so one of the exercises we do, I call it your inner 7-year-old, because from birth to the age of 7, your patterns are established. And then from 7 beyond, you'll replay those patterns in 7-year increments in the various areas of your life. So specifically for money, we look for the first memory you have with money. And the average person has their first money memory somewhere between birth and the age of 7. And then based on what that brought up for you, we can determine the patterns. I'm going to make it about me for a second. So First time I learned that there was this thing called money, I was 6 years old. I was in the grocery store with my mother, and I grabbed a little something that I wanted to have for myself. And when we got to the point for my mom to pay, I handed it over. And when I handed it over, I was met with the back of my mother's hand and a lesson about money that was, we don't need that. Money is only for what we need. So throughout my life, I looked at not what I wanted, not the pair of shoes that was calling to me as I walked through the mall, but the cheap shoes that would serve the need.
Yeah.
That's just one example. So that happened at age 6. Every 6 years in my 7-year pattern, I would have something happen with money. Sometimes it was positive, but most of the time it was negative. I remember when I was in my teens and I came home from cheerleading practice to learn and get my bank statement, because I had been working from the time I was 13, to learn that my dad took almost $7,500 out of my bank account and spent it for himself. I remember going to the financial aid office. I was on a full scholarship, and there was a little glitch in the system that was going to impact my scholarship, and I was going to have to come up with this money. These things happened every 6 years in a 7-year pattern. I filed bankruptcy the 6th year in a 7-year pattern in my 30s because of these money traumas, because of my beliefs around money and the way that I saw money. So what I recommend is that you take a sheet of paper, number it from 1 to 7, 8 to 14, 15 to 21, et cetera, in increments of 7, and go back as far as you possibly can and chart the money stuff, positive and negative. And let's see what comes up.
So what did you do for you personally? What did you do next? Now you have your chart, you can see the pattern. How did you take the next step? Or what is the next step?
I started to reframe what I believe to be true about money, right? You alluded to this earlier. I was born and raised in the church, and church people live the misquote, by the way, that money is the root of all evil. That's not what the scripture says. The scripture actually says the love of money is the root of all evil. And it doesn't even mean that literally. What it really means is extreme greed is the root of all evil.
Yeah.
But those of us who just look at the scripture or the phrase or have had it said to us at face value will think that loving money, wanting money, needing money, desiring money is evil. And therefore, we will do anything in our power to not be evil. And that will, of course, impact our money, right? Mm-hmm. And so I had to start to reframe the beliefs. I had to start to question. And the biggest thing that happened, Mark, is when I filed bankruptcy, the bankruptcy trustee forced me to take a financial literacy course.
Okay.
And that financial literacy course, it taught me what most people who know about money know, the literacy piece, the how to budget, all of that. But also one of the texts was a book called A Happy Pocket Full of Money, which talks about the metaphysics and the energy of money. And so that allowed me to learn what money really was. And because up until that point, money was a function of my identity. We were poor. We were broke. I would say often, I am broke. And I would say it with a badge of honor because that was my identity. And as a result of these experiences that culminated at the bankruptcy, I recognized that not only was I not broke, but that did not have to be my reality, and that I could change how I saw myself, how I saw money, and how money entered into my life experience. And so I began to unravel and undo the beliefs by reframing them in a way that would serve and support what I desired instead.
Then I assume, like, as old programming would come up, then you're probably more self-aware. There's that old kind of narrative and so forth, and like almost reframe it, real time, right? Do you know was there a moment when you really felt like a massive shift? Like, because I mean, from bankruptcy in your 30s to kind of what I can at least see on the outside in what you're doing in your 40s seems to be a pretty far path.
Yeah, I'm worth $12 million now.
Yeah. Okay. So what was was there a big shift, or was it maybe just incremental?
It was incremental. It started with a happy pocket full of money and putting into practice many of the things that David Cameron Gikandi talks about in that book. So just testing the theory.
Okay.
It started with that. And the big thing was you don't have to work hard for money, because most of us, again, whether we come from money or not, that's what we were taught. Right? Yeah. You get money when you effort.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is you don't have to effort for energy. Right?
Yeah.
You don't have to effort for air. So it went against everything that I believe in as I started to challenge it and see, like, I remember the first time, Mark, I made money and I didn't work hard and it was easy. Now, I'll be honest. Initially, it felt a little weird. I'm like, okay, am I going to, is this legal?
Yeah, exactly.
Is someone going to come and arrest me? But eventually, I realized that everything that I thought wasn't true. And that I could make money without working hard. And that I could make money for being brilliant at what it is that I do. And that I could make more in a day than most people make in a year.
Yeah.
And that I could keep challenging the limit. I could keep collapsing the amount of time it would take me to make another significant amount of money. And it became this game that I play. I call it the money moves game. And I make money move. And it's a game I play every day. Money moves in my presence every day. And it comes from some of the most amazing places.
So, but I have to, this is probably my old programming. Like, when I hear you say, I don't have to work hard for money, like, even for me, it feels like, ooh, like, but I want to say, like, yeah, but I also know, like, because we originally were going to book this podcast, I think a few weeks back, but you were busy with obviously preparing and putting on this live event. So it's not like you're just sitting at home doing nothing.
Right.
Like just so people don't take that in the wrong context. Like what does that mean for you when you say you don't have to work hard for money? Or what's the self-talk there?
Yeah. I mean, is there work? Yes. But is it hustle and grind, grueling?
Yeah.
I can't eat. I'll sleep when I die. Work.
Yeah.
Is it that I'm out of integrity and I do things that are not in alignment with my goals and my values? Do I have to go rob people to do it? No. I mean, I'm a business consultant. So I'm sitting here talking to you today in my office. But guess what? Right now at this moment, Mark, I'm working.
Yeah.
And I'm having a hell of a time having this conversation with you. There's no sweat on my brow.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I did not have to compromise or sacrifice anything that's important to me in order to do this work. When I held my live event, sure, for 6 months, we marketed that live event. We sent tons of emails. I did tons of podcast interviews. I stood on lots of stages. I worked.
Yeah.
But did I sacrifice anything? Did I hustle and grind? Did I lose sleep? Absolutely not. And I think, as a culture in entrepreneurship, and also in the United States, right? I don't, I've been to Canada, I've been in and around, but I know other countries don't look at work like we do. Our whole everything is based on effort.
Yeah, no, it's similar here.
And it's almost like you're lazy if you're not sweating when you work. And so there is this misconception or this misnomer that says that it's not really work if there isn't an expenditure that takes place. And I want to challenge that limit for everyone. And for those of you who are listening right now, you're an entrepreneur, small business owner, you have a gift, and your gift is innate. It's natural. It's like the back of your hand. You don't have to read a book. You don't have to prepare to operate in your gift. You can just show up in any space and transform the area that you have been uniquely designed to fulfill on this planet. I would hope that as you're listening, you're shaking your head yes.
Yeah.
That is your gift. That is your work. Do you have to hustle to do it? Do you have to undermine your integrity to do it? Do you have to choose to do it over anything else that you might choose? I would imagine that if we were in a conversation right now, you tell me no. So you already know and have the underpinnings of what it's like to do work that isn't hard. What would happen if you amplified or expanded or accelerated doing that work and allowed yourself to call in the financial reward that goes along with doing that work and solving a problem for a person who's been unsuccessful at creating that solution themselves? That's what I'm suggesting to you.
Well said. You got me all fired up. No, but that's such at least for me personally, so helpful. It makes me think of just also kind of, again, taking a pause and grabbing a pen and a journal at one point and just getting real clear on, like, what are my belief systems around whether it's money, whether how I see business, like just pick the important things in life and write out, like what are the current belief systems? And usually I think when you go through a practice like that, you can see like we were born into a lot of these, right? And to your point, like the programming as we go and so forth, and give ourselves the opportunity to ask, well, are they still in check? Like, do I need to upgrade some of these?
Right.
And usually there's probably quite a few that do need an upgrade, but we just don't ask the questions or we don't take the time to think about it.
And we just meander, like we just exist in it, right? Like I tell this story when I speak about a little girl who's watching her mom make a ham. Mom takes the ham out of the container, washes the ham, gets the pan, cuts the butt off the ham, puts the ham in the pan, puts it in the oven. Little girl is extremely inquisitive and she wants to understand what mom is doing, right? Because she might one day make a ham for her family. So she says, Mom, why'd you cut the butt off the ham before you put it in the pan and put it in the oven? Mom says, I don't know. Ask grandma, because that's the way she did it. Yeah. Little girl calls grandma. Grandma, mom's making a ham. She washed the ham, she cut the butt off the ham, she put the ham in the pan, she put the pan in the oven, and now the ham is cooking. Why did she cut the butt off the ham? Grandma tells little girl, I don't know why your mom did it, but I did it because my pan wasn't big enough to hold the whole ham.
Oh, wow. Okay.
How many times are we asleep at the wheel in our lives, doing what we saw done without ever asking the question if that's what we should be doing?
Wow. That's a great story. I didn't think you were going there. I thought you're going to, oh, well, my mom, told me, and it just like a generational thing that continued. That's even more powerful.
Yeah. But we all have those.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
In every different way. We have them around money. Like my dad used this craziest thing, and I had to stop myself from doing it. My dad would unplug all of the electronics at night before he went to bed.
Okay.
I don't know if it saved us any money on the electric bill, but that is what he did. And I remember when I moved into my very first apartment, I literally would go around at night and unplug everything. And then one day I was doing it, and one of my friends was like, why are you doing that? Well, that's what my dad did. Well, why did your dad do it? I don't know.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, why are you doing something that you don't know why you're doing? And I literally just had to stop. It was like one of those, if you remember, Arsenio Hall used to have a talk show, and he used to have this segment called Things That Make You Go, It was one of those things. I was like, I have no idea why I do this. I'm not going to do it anymore.
Yeah. And I'm going to not doing it because I just saved all this time.
This takes a lot to do this every night before I go to bed. Crazy.
Yeah, it's wild. But it's a good point. That's a pretty kind of in your face, obvious one, but I suspect there are so many things that we're doing that are like kind of just below the surface that like, wait a second, let's just do a little edit there, and shift. So what's got you excited right now as you're 40, would you say 48, 46?
48. Yes.
What's on your mind? What's got you energized? What are you looking forward to?
Yeah, so I am loving life right now. I am loving myself. I'm loving this version of myself. I love who I'm evolving into. I love the conversations I get to have. I love disrupting the thought patterns of people so that they can shift into a new reality. So, the work I do every single day, I absolutely love it. How that shows up in various formats, as I stated earlier, we just finished our annual live event. It's amazing. 3 days of just complete transformation. Like we had we always do an after party when the event's over a few weeks later, just giving people an opportunity to get home and get reacclimated, and just listening to the stories and watching the tears fall of how people's lives literally changed in 3 days. Yeah. And so we introduced some new programs this year. And so I'm really excited about the clients that we're onboarding right now that I'm going to get to work with over the next 12 months to help them to not only grow their businesses, but to grow themselves. Because I don't think you can scale your business without scaling yourself.
No.
Right? You've got to create capacity for this new up-leveled version of yourself to be able to have a place to live when it's all said and done. And so I'm excited about creating capacity and helping people to demystify some of the thoughts and beliefs that they hold that don't serve them, never serve them, and will finally be put to rest so that they can step fully into the version of themselves that is supposed to exist in this season of their life. And that excites the hell out of me.
That excites me. And now it makes sense because before we hit record, you said something to the effect of, your work and these programs. The only thing that's the same about a person that comes through a program or the event is essentially their name. And I feel like
if I do my job right.
Yeah, but I feel like just even in this conversation, like that feels very true. I can see what you're doing. And like even in the short time, I wrote down a bunch of questions that I can't wait to just take some time and sit with and, unlock some new components of the mind and let some stuff go and let what needs to surface. So
that's awesome.
Super exciting.
So good.
Yeah. So where can people learn more about what you're up to, dive in a little deeper, or sign up for any of the programs, just take ownership of their minds and lives, and have just what comes to me is just have like exponential good impact around the world.
Yeah, that feels really, really good. You can go to movetomillions.com. Movetomillions.com. It's a digest site. And from there, you can learn about my book, my podcast, all the things. All the things we do are right there for you at movetomillions.com.
Amazing. Any final words for everyone listening?
I want to just encourage you to keep testing the limits. Keep asking yourself the questions. And when you finish asking the last question to ask, what would abundance do?
Yeah, that one.
That's what I want you to do.
Yeah. You are one breath of fresh air, beautiful energy in this world. I mean, I want to thank you for taking time to come on the show, but a higher thank you for just clearly spending the time in thought and reflection to like really uncover, the best version of yourself. And I know that continues to evolve, but like I can feel it. And I think I know there are so many people benefiting from that. And then the ripple effect of their work benefits others. So thanks for, being true to yourself and just continuing to rock the journey.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for the acknowledgement and the safe space to be myself and to offer something to your listeners that will hopefully help them to continue to live into their shift.